So, in the previous episode, we discussed fiscal space and we defined fiscal space as the budgetary room that allows governments to spend in one sector, and in our case, the health sector, without necessarily distorting the amounts available for the other sectors or distorting spending in such a way that other critical sectors will be adversely affected. So, today we're going to answer one critical question. Suppose you have adequate fiscal space. Does it automatically translate to an increase in the health sector budget? Can you sit pretty and say that because the government or some policymakers say that health sector financing would increase, that it would increase automatically? Unfortunately, the answer in most countries is no, whether you're talking about developing countries or even industrialized nations. Funding for health sector always finds itself competing with funding for other critical sectors, depending on the context of a particular economy or country. So today we'll go step by step into discussing what might be some of the steps that we can take to ensure that the government provides adequate financing and keeps increasing financing for the health sector progressively from one year to the next. So we'll discuss a few steps. One of the ways to move from rhetoric to action is basically getting things on paper. One way of doing so is to develop a health financing strategy or getting some cabinet memo or any other document signaling some commitment to increase domestic financing. Well, the name of the document does not really matter. What matters is at what level this document is committed to. Who signs or validates this document? These should be stakeholders from a wide range of sectors actually agreeing to the document. This can include government, private sector, civil society, development partners, communities and beneficiaries, and so on. But it should then also have some commitment at a very high level. That's what matters. The level at which the commitment is obtained is what matters. Usually, if a minister of finance or health or the head of state, like in the case of the East African community partner states, if they commit to this document, then you have a higher chance of it getting financed. A case in point is the Universal Health Coverage Financing Strategy that included HIV and other financing assented to by the ministers of health in East African community and committed to by the heads of states around 2018-2019. This has made it a bit easier for the different countries to then keep increasing health financing progressively from one year to the next. So then, let's assume we have a strategy. What's the next step? Step two would be to disseminate it widely, simply because the head of state or other partners agreed to this strategy. You cannot assume that you'll sit pretty and have it financed. One, you need to disseminate it widely, even within government, and advocate and hold transparent and documented dialogue, especially with your legislature and policymakers in government throughout the budget cycle. Why do we include the legislature or parliament? Because they will be involved in the budget approval and review process. They will be involved in some of the policy making processes. Why do you have to then advocate with your policymakers or even the health programs? Because they need to know that they will need to budget additionally at some point. What's the third step? Mhm. One of the first things or the best things to do is to get people behind you. Some of the development partners are critical in this regard, but you need to make sure that you push them to increasingly adopt health co-financing requirements in all health sector grants. Because in some sectors or subsectors within health, for example, HIV, you find that according to UNAIDS, development partners funded about 77%, 73% of the health of the HIV budget, and governments only funded about 27%. And this is not right, but the more that they require that governments co-finance, you see more domestic budgeting for these kinds of diseases, communicable, non-communicable, and others, such as the vaccine initiatives. What then do you need to do? You need to ensure that other development partners follow this example currently being done by, being required by the Global Fund, Global AIDS Vaccine Initiative, United Nations Children's Fund, that's UNICEF, Gavi, to basically increase the amount of funding available from the domestic sources, meaning government and local private sector and others, including public health insurance. Who else do you need to engage? You need to engage your civil society to keep advocating for this increased financing as a year-long health sector priority. Never get tired of making noise, especially civil society and communities. You need to keep advocating for increased health financing for it to keep gaining traction. What other step might be interesting? One of the first things to do when you get this commitment is to run to the Ministry of Finance or Treasury prior to them issuing that circular, the budget circular, which provides budget ceilings and guidelines, and have them ensure that this is included. This additional health sector financing is included in that budget circular. This budget circular is usually a result of the development priorities of a country. So if health sector is a development priority, well and good, you'll find a lot of favor. If health sector for some reason in that country's context is not a priority, then you'll find that you will need to advocate at that level to have that circular keep the health sector a priority. Sometimes it's about the political party manifestos. The winning political parties needs to have understood how critical the health sector is and to keep budgeting for it. How then do you move from there? You need to share these health financing priorities across all government programs. By programs here, we are talking about the Ministry of Health programs to ensure that they actually budget this additional financing and they provide additional programmatic targets that they'll meet with this additional financing. Because what happens with this kind of spending is that suppose the ministry does not request it from the treasury, then there's no way that the treasury would find it difficult supporting an increase of in budgets that it does not know whose use it is not sure about. So it has to be clearly budgeted, and in case it is budgeted, it needs to be used, at least most of it, so that it's kept. This budget increases keep happening. Do you then rest after you do that? No. You then need to keep monitoring this budget process and ensure that your chief financial officer, whether at the county, ministry, or other level, keeps consolidating and aggregating these budgets, and to ensure that their final budget they want to take to treasury for approval and inclusion actually has this increase included. So it should include a budgetary increase before it leaves the chief financial officer towards treasury. Is that the final step? Sorry, no, no. There is a part you need to really take seriously, and that is to sensitize Parliament. You need to sensitize your parliamentary committee and ensure that they uphold this commitment to stick to agreed minimum health funding thresholds and ensure that they include it within your budget making process. While you're engaging them, you also need to engage other policymakers, the Ministry of Finance or Treasury, to ensure that they keep increasing this health funding as committed. During the debate, some debates can basically waylay your health budget increase. It might actually be subject to a cut for one reason or the other, but you need to create a buffer amongst parliamentarians, policymakers, and the treasurers to ensure that this debate about budget cuts never throws the axe into your health sector budget. Next, you need to advocate with your minister responsible for finance or the treasury to make sure that they prioritize your health sector budget and protect it from cuts. They also have a key role to play. Following that parliamentary committee budget review, who else do you need to advocate with? Your president or the person who will assent to the Finance Act or issue warrants so that they protect this increase in the budget. Next, you need to sensitize the accounting officer at Treasury or Ministry of Finance to provide warrants for expenditure and to ensure that this budget is used effectively. So the accounting officers at Treasury or the Ministry of Health need to keep following and pushing and checking that these budgets are actually used quickly and for the right planned purpose. What's your role too in this stage? You need to also ensure, as civil society or anybody else involved in increasing health sector financing, that you monitor how the financing is used, ensure that it is used, there's no huge lag, and you ensure that you're tracking all financing indicators. One of the key financing indicators is the amount of money or financial expenditure by source of origin. The origins or sources are divided into public, external, and other sources. You need to ensure that the public portion of it keeps increasing. That way, you'll find that you're actually increasing the health sector budget. That, I think, if you follow these 12 or so steps, you are in good state. But they're not easy, as you notice. You need a team, and you need a team that speaks with one voice. Next, we'll discuss one of the most difficult subjects in health sector financing, and that is public health insurance. For some reason, people find this topic extremely difficult, complex, but it needn't be. So, in our next episode, we'll break it down into several stages and discuss how best to do it in different economic contexts. Thank you very much and see you in the next episode.